What's up, Berkeley? We have a really special vlog for you today, which Douglas is joining me for, because I'm talking about something that plagues very, very many of us, and that's gaining weight in a relationship. I'm going to talk about why it happens and how you can reverse it together.
Okay, sorry.
Are you mimicking me?
No.
So I personally believe that pretty much all waking that you're uncomfortable with anyways happens from trauma. So whether you know that you eat like way more than you need to and you sit and you binge Netflix with the best of them, that behavior is still from trauma. So getting over those traumas, whether they're micro traumas or major traumas, and healing them, growing into, a more empowered version of yourself, and then strengthening your connection to your ideal body nature so that you're living in your naturally most healthiest, best body. That's what I teach in Ideal Body Composition Comprehensive. Now that's all about independently healing your damn self.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when you get into a relationship? When I got into a relationship, like, all of this stuff completely changed. My independent ways of being, they no longer serve me when I entered an interdependent, serious way of living in a relationship. And that's because in a relationship, different kinds of trauma come up. Especially when you're in a serious relationship where you live together, it's a familial relationship. Your family trauma tends to come up.
My family trauma seriously came up in ours.
And from my experience, I would say that if you gained weight in a relationship and it is uncomfortable to you, again, I'm not talking about, like gaining weight and being like, yeah, I look great and I'm comfortable and I love my body. I'm talking about gaining weight and being like, what the hell is happening to me? I would bet money on the fact that it is coming from some sort of familial trauma that's been unearthed in your new family. Now, people have different reactions to trauma, different ways of coping with trauma. Douglas, when I met him, I didn't really realize at the time, but his way of coping with his personal independent trauma
was just like distracting, putting myself into a computer, looking at a screen, watching films, making music, whatever it was. I was just finding anything to distract myself because I wasn't feeling comfortable.
So that's like his way of coping. He loves, television or, work on the computer, which is, it's our profession now. So, that's not necessarily always a bad thing. Neither are films. But he also didn't take care of his health. Like, he didn't nourish himself enough.
No, yeah.
Right? And my way of coping, I love food. I definitely use food as like an emotional kind of thing, and food is emotional, and it is like a wonderful way to bond, and it is a really important part of our life. But I definitely tend to move more towards kind of like food addiction to cope with my traumas.
Sorry, not bored.
Am I keeping you up?
No, I love this. Thank you.
So his go-to coping method for trauma and having, traumas being aggravated, familial traumas being aggravated by a relationship, his go-to is to stick his face in a screen, whether it's like a video game or a film or, he was a producer, you make music, whatever, just sticking his face in any screen. Mm-hmm. And me, it's like sticking anything in my face. Like, I love food. I totally, like, I turn to food to kind of like comfort and distract and nourish my feelings when I'm triggered into trauma. And both of us like to drink. So entering into a relationship and having those different familial traumas kind of get aggravated on a normal times in our relationship, we watched like probably too much TV ate, probably like, far too many dinners out and maybe like way too much food.
Yeah, just too much food.
And,
yeah.
And we, enjoyed quite a few beverages here and there. But when we were actually going through like live traumas, which happened when his familial trauma became something that we were living through and not just something that was like a resonance, a remnant of it within, but it was actually something we had to deal with head on. That's when, we would binge TV like insanely, and we would just eat. We ate out every single day when we lived in Mexico, when the trauma was probably at its peak, and drink
Just too much.
way too much.
¿Vas a chelado?
Sí.
Wow.
Gracias, señor.
Sí, chelado.
You can actually, I'll put the full story below. You can actually see the full story, but a quick overview is that I had actually overcome a bunch of like my childhood trauma and, become like a successful academic. I traveled all over the world. I developed a theory called the Sustainable Dreams Theory, which is what I base all of my teaching on now, that after studying inspiration and how people get to their big goals, I recognize how people heal, grow, and strengthen, their own personal powers within to get to these big goals. And I had always struggled with my weight growing up, and I lost all the weight like without effort and kept it off for years and years without even trying, just because I had kind of healed myself and I was walking in myself fully. And when I met Douglas, I had no idea, but he was just like full blown coping still with a bunch of like trauma from his past and kind of immobilized. And I just totally projected my own like self onto like him, thinking that he was just really independent and he was really just doing his own thing, when really he was like,
I was like hiding. I was like not wanting to be seen. I was being reclusive. I was being like, independent in some ways, but
detached,
like more detached. It wasn't all good.
So I travel all over the world, like I'm like this empowered woman, doing my thing, starting a business. I just graduated from university, and we worked together, and we really hit it off. We started being friends. We talked every day on the internet. Surprise, surprise. And then I went away and I was in Thailand, and I guess we kind of fell in love, right? We had like kissed a little bit before we left. But so when he came to see me, he flew across the world to be with me, and we moved in together. And we were living in a Muslim country in Malaysia, so like we even had like an engagement ring. It was just like a fake cheap ring that we weren't actually engaged. We like called it our promise ring.
And just to be like,
because of like living in a Muslim country, we wanted to be like respectful.
Respect your culture.
Yeah. So, but we went from like A to Z, like just in like no time flat, and we were with each other 24/7. So, the trauma, it definitely came out, and it took a while for you.
To me to actually recognize that I had some trauma that was going on with me. I was like definitely in denial, definitely wasn't sure what was going on, but after lots and lots of reflection with you and taking a lot of time to really look at myself, it definitely started to unravel parts of the onion and really see the inner layers of what was really going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew that I had so much to learn in a relationship. I knew that this was going to be like the biggest challenge I've ever had taken on, like actually being in a relationship after coming from, so much intergenerational trauma and healing that, and then getting into like a familial type scenario. I was like super nervous. So for a long time, I just kind of like blamed myself for a lot of the problems that we were having. And then it came to pass that like, it was not my fault.
It wasn't your fault, and
there is such a thing as like not being at fault.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't his fault either. He didn't. It's not like he meant to do it. The fact is, like, he had no idea that he had been traumatized. It was so covert, and you know, he thought he was good and everything was good, and he'd been treated really, really, really well. But you know, he obviously wasn't, and he treated me the same way, and it just triggered so much stuff in me, and like I would just like lose my, you know, I would just like go bananas. Maybe I'm not that innocent. I mean, definitely, like, you know, there are like definitely situations that I could have like handled better, and that was definitely, I understood what was happening with me. I understood that I was being triggered, you know, but we worked through it, you know.
Yeah, we took the time and we worked through it, and we came to an understanding, and
found out that, like, you know, you were suffering.
we discovered that I was suffering from depression, and that there was like a lot of trauma that happened that I wasn't acknowledging, and that there was a lot of masking of my emotions, and the treatment that happened to her through me was me trying to kind of like mask how I was actually feeling because I was like so traumatized. So there was always this like confusion of like what's really going on right now. So it was really hard at the start of our relationship to really get like a footing of what was really going on. So you have two people that like love each other crazily, but there's like this like just this really like this elephant in the room all the time.
Yeah, and so he had to kind of like walk through that, because, you know, I was like pretty empowered and understood these things pretty well, and had grown and healed to a pretty like definitely, you know, decent level. Like I could recognize stuff, so it wasn't like I wouldn't let him get away with stuff, you know. It was like not
Good. Glad.
But he, you know, he faced a lot of stuff, and he grew a lot. And then we came home.
And all that growth of coming back home is just like, you know, like I was a different person. Like,
Yeah, he'd grown into a little bit more of like an independent, you know, empowered person.
And it just, you know, adjusting back into where I was, it just, things didn't work out. I didn't fit in where I thought I used to fit, and I needed something different. I needed change.
So the interesting part is that when we came home and he was different, there was a lot of challenges to that difference from the people who expected him to be the same, that, you know, detached kind of coping person. And it caused a lot of friction, and there was a lot of new trauma going on. And we kind of escaped to Mexico for the winter. This is like COVID is going on, and there's all of this friction and all of this new trauma coming out. And he and I both, was gaining weight this whole time from this little bit of like trying to get him to deal with his traumas, getting my traumas triggered, and not having like a way to actually like solve it, because we hadn't come to like a full solution yet. We were just working through this stuff.
Like coming back to my home, it just a lot of it got re-triggered. Like I was working all of it, I was acknowledging it, I was getting to a point, but throwing back into coming back, it really re-triggered a lot of things for me.
Well, it also brought a lot of things to light. Like it just got getting worse and worse and worse. Like realizing what, you know, what you'd been through.
So going back to Mexico, sorry.
So when all of this kind of like came to the surface, and there was like, you know, trauma that we were like enduring kind of new, we both gained 20 pounds.
Seriously, it was like the most weight I've ever been.
Like it's the most weight I didn't even know I could get that heavy.
It was like a shock when I finally like went and stood on the scale, and I was like, what the like,
I was the heaviest that I've ever been when we left, because of all of the like little micro trauma stuff, and enduring all of this extra, you know, new trauma. Like both of us was 20 pounds heavier than I've ever been. Like insane. But the good news is, you know, I've lost almost all of that weight now.
And I've lost all of that weight.
So this whole time too, I want to just jump back, this whole time too that I was like gaining weight, and not really fully realizing exactly why, I kept trying to use my independent means, the independent means that I had learned and been empowered by, and that allowed me to really be myself, and they didn't work. And so I've been developing interdependent means, and I totally recognize that like there's this completely other kind of person, a completely other like stage of life where people may have grown through independence and then get into interdependence, and it's like a whole different ball game. So like I'm now discovering like interdependent means to actually lose weight. And I want to say that one of the keys for me was something that is like not very popular, especially in the personal development world. And that was totally exonerating myself of blame. Now, don't get me wrong, self-reflection and inner work, this is the stuff of like my dreams. This is what I do with my days. But in this specific scenario, I had to completely like just stop the argument in my head, which included blaming other people, and just release the idea that I could possibly be blamed for, being kind of abused. These ideas of like self-reflection and inner work and like using that to make, your relationships better or whatever, those things, they only work with people who are not being abusive. So normally the only kind of way that you really can be traumatized is if people, don't really care to self-reflect or do any kind of inner work or make up for the things that they've done. The people doing the traumatizing are usually completely void of, the willingness to take responsibility. So I've found that actually my self-blame would hide in this like blaming other people. But when I exonerated myself from like being like capable of being blamed for being mistreated, it just completely changed the way that I approached everything. When we're like actively like trying to blame people, I feel like that is actually the outcome of like this argument within, and it's like a retaliation. Like you're the deepest part of you is saying, no, it's not me, it's them. But that doesn't happen if you're not taking blame.
Yeah, you don't have to prove that you're right and they're wrong in this situation. You just need to like exonerate me that and be like, no, I'm not responsible for this.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Like,
So just allowing, like letting go of the blame, not pointing it and shoving it or anything, completely letting go of the blame and allowing it to completely fall and just like suck out of you like a magnet onto the people that are doing the traumatizing. It is so effing freeing. In it, you can let go of people who are unwilling to change. In that, exonerating myself from blame at the very, very point in the moment that I was like, I am not to blame for any of this. Like, not even a little bit in any way, shape, or form. I went from fighting with him to asking him what he needed. Because the people that are willing to change, they're not doing the traumatizing, because it's giving them kicks. They're doing it because they're acting out their own traumas. So if you like don't actually take blame for it, you don't like feel like I'm personally responsible, like I've done something to, deserve this, then like I don't have to fight back, because like I obviously didn't do anything to deserve it. So I can be like, yo, what is going on with you? Like, what do you need right now? You're obviously not okay.
And then there's a time to actually like acknowledge what's going on and reflect and deal with the hurt and move on and heal and lose weight.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it results in, releasing shame. Releasing shame is actually shown to have like a physical corroboration with releasing weight. This weight that we carry on us, a lot of the times, this is emotional armor. This is literally, emotional baggage. This is like excess weight weighing us down in the physical. So that's how we're dealing now we're getting to the place where we can be really objective about it because of letting go of self-blame and just allowing the blame to fall where it falls. I
Wherever
mean,
it belongs.
it naturally goes exactly where it needs to go. And if I don't need to blame him for like the actions that other people around him have taken, or for him like acting out, certain traumas, then like I can actually like be there for him as a partner to help him grow. And that lets me let go of all the stuff that I can't control and drop a bunch of this emotional armor. I can also support him in making the changes that we need to make as a couple. And he can, with this safe space with me, let go of people and situations that are hurting him. And he can take responsibility.
For myself.
For his best life. Instead of walking around and feeling shame for all of this stuff that he can't actually control. So yeah, I highly implore you to like release the self-blame from anybody who's being, an abuser or, people who are acting out, traumas with you in your family life or etc. And once you release that self-blame, you can actually start working with the people that are willing to work with you and let go of the people that aren't and, stop fighting with them. So thanks for tuning in. I really loved having you today, and thank you, Douglas, for being part of the Upwards Wellness vlog today.
No, I really appreciate it.
And I wish you all your best health, your best life, and your best body, and your best relationships too.
And best of luck, everybody. I know it's not easy all the time, but thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.